The Willamette Valley is home to professional basketball in Albany, Oregon, and in year 3, the Jaguars are poised for their biggest season yet. The Willamette Valley Jaguars are your local professional basketball team, competing across the western United States, representing the Willamette Valley region in the Basketball League, or TBL. The Jaguars roster is composed of players from across the country, grinding to live out their dreams of playing professional basketball. Every episode, we take you behind the scenes on the latest updates on the team, breaking down performances throughout the season, and interviewing coaches, players, and team executives. Tune in for special episodes to hear from the team's community partners, as well as exclusive interviews with city and state officials who support the Jaguars throughout the season. This is Jaguars Beyond the Baseline.
Welcome into Jags Beyond the Baseline on this beautiful and sunny Monday, March 1st, 2026. My name is Jeremy Iskowitz, hosting for the first time on Jags Beyond the Baseline because today we get an opportunity to interview the two men that, for the most part, have been running the show for Jags Beyond the Baseline. I'm talking about Isaac Dubey and Devlin Christiansen. Happy June, guys. How are you guys doing?
Good. Final week at the University of Oregon, final week of classes for me. It's pretty surreal, I'd say, and just kind of crazy to comprehend the fact that I'm graduating and going into the real world and very soon.
Yeah, all things considered, it's been a great term, and it's been a great time here at the University of Oregon, but it's very, very weird to accept that this is the last week of classes and it's going to be my last finals week. But it's beautiful here in Eugene right now. It's like an 80-degree day. The sun's out. You can feel it walking in here, and so I'm excited for the week.
Yeah, and I think it's worth mentioning before we kind of get into things. You guys both mentioned coming up on the last couple of weeks of school here, so just want to congratulate you two on graduating.
Thank you.
Excited to see what's ahead for both of you, but we'll get to more about you guys in a second. I do want to talk about this past weekend for the Jags, though. The Jags, for the first time as a team, made the playoffs. They were in the first round of the West Conference playoffs. They went out to North Dakota this past weekend, where unfortunately their season did come to an end, but they played two games, the first being on Friday in North Dakota against Forebears. They lost 156-79. In that game, LeBryant Robinson had 18 points for the Jags, and for the Forebears, Robert Finnessy had 32 points. The theme of this game was the Forebears outworked the Jags in terms of shooting. Forebears, they shot 62.4% from the field to the Jags 40.5%. And then something we've talked about a lot on this podcast is the Jags struggles from the free throw line. In this game, they got to the line 27 times, but they only made 14 of them. And when you're getting out, when the shooting percentages are that much of a difference and you're not knocking down your free throws, that's pretty much how you get to a score like they did on Friday. Saturday was the same result, another loss to Forebears. A little closer this time, 132-93. The Jags season does unfortunately come to an end, but Brandon Hansen had 21 points and Josiah Thompson had 18 points. For Forebears, they move on to the West Divisional Finals. They will play Great Falls Electric starting on June 3rd. I'm curious, Isaac and Devlin, did you guys watch these games? What do you guys know about these games? Then what are your thoughts on this season for the Jags?
Yeah, I'll start with the first game. I just think you see the disparity in field goal percentage, that the fact that the Forebears Roar shot almost 63% from the floor. A large majority of that is just dunks. They live around the rim because they have so much size. They have a guy in Jamario Rivers who is tops in the league in field goal percentage. And they just have so much presence and size. And without Preston Whitfield this weekend for the Jaguars, it was going to be a really tough task to even hang with this team. And I think you got to be proud of the fight that they put up on Saturday. But yeah, just a little bit too tough of a task to take on this team with this much size.
Absolutely. I really agree with Isaac. We saw Forebears when they came to Albany earlier this year, and it was pretty clear why they were the best team, not just in the West, but in TBL, ranked number 1 right now. And just one loss on the season that came on buzzer-beating free throws with zeros on the clock, things you just don't see very often. And they're up to 25 wins now after those two playoff game wins against the Jaguars. And so they're just a really, really deep team. The size has posed an issue for the Jaguars so far this year. And they rolled out 13 guys in that game on Friday in the big blowout. And I just think that their depth really shows up when a guy like Deshaun Munson, who gave the Jaguars a triple-double by halftime in the very first game that they played in Albany this year that Isaac and I got to call, he only had 8 points in 14 minutes played in that game on Friday. And so that kind of just signifies to me how deep this Forebears team is, and that we got to see some guys go off when they came to town, and we go over there, the Jaguars do, and all of a sudden it's a whole new story. It's a different scouting report. Robert Finney didn't even play in both games.
Yeah,
and
that sounds right.
Yeah, and he had 32 and led the way, and he was super efficient. He had 10 rebounds as well and 8 assists. He was pushing triple-double. So this team is super talented. I'm really, really excited to see them match up against Great Falls. But I think that if I had to make a pick, it's hard to for anybody to knock off the Potawatomi Fire, but Forebears would be the team to do it.
Yeah, and I want to, before we move on, give some credit to the guys who led the way on Saturday, and Brandon Hansen and Josiah Thompson. These are guys that just got signed to the team like not even 2 weeks ago. So came over from Tri-Cities, played with the Sun Devils for a few games and for a few weeks, and then Brandon Hansen and Josiah Thompson leading the way in a playoff game to end the season. Props to those guys, seriously.
For sure. And Devlin, you kind of mentioned a little bit at the end of the regular season last week, Forebears not only was the best team in the West, but in terms of power rankings and rankings in the TBL, they are the number one overall team. So in terms of them, to see them potentially make a deep run to the playoffs wouldn't be the most shocking thing in the world. Like I mentioned, that series of the divisional finals versus Great Falls Electric does start on June 3rd. But now talking a little bit about you guys. Obviously, the listeners and the viewers, they've heard your voices for the past X amount of weeks. But if you guys could just introduce yourselves, tell us a little bit about your roles with the Jaguars, and then kind of how you found out about the Jags.
Yeah. Jeremy, I want to thank you for offering to do this. This was your idea to host the show and interview Devlin and I. I have been, this year, I'm the director of broadcasting. I helped purchase and set up all of the equipment that you see for the stream that runs on TBL TV and Next Move Radio, who are our DJ, Aaron, who's our DJ and has been our PA announcer for some of our games. That's his business. It's Next Move Radio. Basically set up all the equipment, helped purchase it. I also helped recruit a lot of the interns this year, and kind of help them develop their careers in if they want to go into sports or something along the lines of PR or media or game day operations. And it's been so fun to bring people on to the team and show them this basketball product and everything that we're doing in the community too. I first found out about the Jaguars through Handshake, actually. And it was perfect timing because at the student radio station at the University of Oregon, I had just called my first 2 men's basketball games. And it was the first calls I'd ever done for KWVA. And it was Bushnell men's basketball. And I'd been loving it. And those were my first 2 times really doing play-by-play and sports broadcasting. And I just thought, how do I keep doing this and stay around this? And I was scrolling Handshake one day, and I saw the Emerald City Jaguars need a play-by-play broadcaster. And I was like, how perfect would that be if, in college, not only am I getting experience with the station, but I'd also get to cover a team and get involved, with a professional team from what it looked like, and I looked into them a little bit, saw that they were just getting into their first year, and I insistently emailed Marion, the old owner, and Kelly, and basically it was a long story of how I eventually started broadcasting, but I just basically stuck around and kept telling them like, hey, I want to get involved. I want to do this. And then it opened up to where they needed someone to call a game, and I stepped in. They asked me to come back the following year, and they can't get me to leave.
Yeah. I'm Devlin. I'm from Portland, and so I grew up a Trailblazers fan. Basketball has always been running in my blood. I've always been so devoted to basketball, and growing up around a small market team, I always thought that it was really cool how much the Trailblazers meant to me personally, but also just the city as a whole. And so I think the biggest draw about the Jaguars when that opportunity came up was just the sense of community in the group, but also the opportunity that we had to bring community and, bring broadcasted games with real announcers to, local fans here in Eugene in the spring when they were still the Emerald City Jaguars. And so this was last year that I was at KWVA, the student radio station here at University of Oregon, and I had really just gotten involved. I had spent my fall and winter terms doing everything I could to get involved with the station and picking up productions and doing a lot of color commentating, which was fun for me, but ultimately the goal was play-by-play. I always kind of knew that was what I wanted to do. And so I really felt like I had, put in the work and everything, but there was people that were there before me, and I needed to, bide my time a little bit and wait for the right opportunity to come up before I got some play-by-play reps for the station. And I remember it like it was yesterday, because former sports director here, Austin Oda, knew that was a big deal. He knew that play-by-play was what I wanted to do, and he knew that basketball was my main sport. And so he told me, and he's like, kind of keep it under wraps, but Isaac has been, talking to this team, this, professional basketball team in the area, and it sounds like there's a chance that we're going to bring them on and sign a contract with them for KWVA to where we're outsourcing broadcasters to them. And it would be a 3-way split between you, Isaac, and Brody, so that, everybody's available for stuff. There's spring break and things like that. And I remember it like it was the coolest thing that I had ever been introduced to. It was such a big opportunity for me, and I was so grateful for that from the station. And, last season was absolutely great. It was such a fun experience. I made a lot of great relationships. And then, after the season ended, it was time to start thinking about next season for the Jaguars. And they reached out to Isaac and brought him back. And Isaac reached out to me and was like, listen, we did a good job. You did a good job. And I want to have somebody on with me to do this who's been around the team a little bit, who knows what this grind is like. And, I want you to come on. And I was absolutely stunned by that offer. And I said yes on the spot. He gave me a second. He's like, you don't have to have an answer right now. I was like, no, I want to. I love the Jaguars. I love calling games. Yeah. I love basketball. I love basketball in small places. And so that's really what how I found out about them and what drew me in and kind of kept me here.
Yeah, that's amazing. Devlin, you answered like my next 2 questions with that answer. So that was amazing. So kind of going back to when you guys started, Isaac, I know it was a little bit earlier for you than you, Devlin, but just in terms of how far the organization has come since you guys started, like explain that for people that maybe just heard about the Jaguars for the first time. Like, did we mention at the jump that this has been the best year for the Jags? Mm-hmm. When you guys started, like, where was this organization?
I don't know how far back we want to go, but Marion was the first owner, and when he bought the team, didn't have a full off season to really put a team together. He held a training camp, but it was all guys that were trying out from like Lane Community College, Lynn Benton Community College, like all these like guys who were like really hungry and desperate. And now we're like bringing in people from all over the country this year. So as far as the team, it's grown a lot. And I think that is the biggest thing, is like, that's not as much of a concern now, is bringing in that talent, and like, are we going to have 5 out on the floor this week? And with a little bit more continuity out on the floor, it's allowed the rest of the organization to really push the product to the community, right? And to say, like, you know, we have this player returning. We have, you know, this player who's really good this year. We have, and so I'd say, like, the on the court product has grown a lot from just the players who have come back, and through that, like, pushing it as a product to the community has also been a huge growing point.
No, I absolutely agree with Isaac. I think since he hit on the on the court product did grow a lot. He was here a whole year before me, and he got to see that, you know, that raw start with Marion and all those guys. And I came in last year and really only got to do a handful of the home games. I think I was at 4 of them. I did 3 as play-by-play. I was probably more like 5 or 6. But, you know, watching the on-the-court product, it kind of grew throughout last season, where there's a lot of roster turnover in the league like TBL. And so, you know, a lot of new guys coming in and out, but it was clear that there was a certain talent threshold that you needed to be at to play there. And so that really helped the rest of the organization grow and helped the coaching staff, you know, gel. And bringing in Coach Mary was, you know, one of the biggest moments for this organization. But that all happens because the on-the-court product was good enough that when there was some coaching turmoil and the previous coach had left, the team was ready to, you know, stay and rally around this new head coach, and they certainly have. And Coach Mary has, you know, since becoming the owner, has really invested herself in the team's success on the court, but also off the court. Isaac's talking about the partnerships, and I touched on building community, and all that starts at the top with Coach Mary and how she sets us up for success. I mean, we're students at the end of the day, and we have a lot on our plate, and Coach Mary and the rest of the organization, Cindy Murphy and Callie Silvers, really set us up so well to be able to do what we do best, while they and the rest of us are focused on building that sense of community. And I think that that's really the biggest thing for me that I've noticed, you know, coming from games last year at Mac Court here, where there was only a handful of people in the stands, and now you have the home opener this year was like a magical moment where the stands were packed and you have people, you know, banging their feet in a close game in the fourth quarter, and that's just not really something that was part of the Jags last year, and so it's beautiful to see that.
Yeah, I'm curious because you guys have been the voice all year long, and you mentioned last year as well for the Jaguars. What has that experience been like? You know, both like actually broadcasting the game, but something that you just touched on that's really unique is that you guys are up in when we're home at Lynn Benton Community College, you guys are high above everyone else, so you get the full picture of everything that's going on in the arena, both the fans, the game, things like that. So what has that experience been like in terms of the broadcasting?
Devlin, I'm gonna let you take this one first.
Well, I think it's been so special because not only are we the voices of the team and you know, the voice that you're hearing when you're watching it, but the organization and Coach Mary and, you know, Isaac kind of at the forefront of this, as well as Emmett, our technical director, have really done a good job of allowing me and the whole broadcast department to be a part of like the executive board of the Jaguars and have influence. And, you know, they really value our opinions, and we can tell when, you know, they ask us questions that they're really hearing what we have to say. And so, you know, it wasn't the biggest deal in the world, but when we were trying to find a home arena, and Isaac and I were like, hey, well, a press box would be nice. It's not a must, but it sure would be nice. And then we got to have that awesome press box set up at Lynn Benton Community College, where, like you're talking about, you know, we can sit down, we can have a monitor in front of us, run like a real professional broadcast, and then we get to stand up and look down at all the fans that are just truly, you know, not looking at us, but they're focused on the game. They're in love with the product on the court. And I think that's really the most special thing about being one of the voices of this team, is not just the experience of actually getting to call the games, because I love that. I'll always love calling a game, but the way that the organization has treated us as the voices and really making sure that off the court, off the mic, our voices are heard.
Yeah, that's a really good answer. And it makes me think about how when you hear voice of the team, you think about calling the game. But I think like what we should emphasize is that oftentimes there's a lot that goes on outside of, just calling the game that we're worrying about or we're thinking about or that we're told 5 minutes pregame that we need to adjust to. So I think the main thing I'd say is being involved in the Jaguars. There's two things. Is that first, I've had a tremendous education in what it takes to build like a business, and especially it's really hard in sports. And I'd say basketball is one of the easier businesses to build as far as building a team from scratch. I think about being the play-by-play voice of the team is great, but like sometimes before games we have to think about, who's going to be our PA announcer this day? Who's going to sit at the scorer's table with Callie? She needs like 3 people. Who's going to run the shot clock and the game clock? And so it's really given me a great education in being behind the scenes and all the things that not a lot of people think about when you think about a basketball team or you watch it from home on a stream or on TV. And the second thing is that it's taught me to be really adaptable and flexible, I think like when you're in such a competitive industry like broadcasting is, and you're like me and you're pretty obsessive about like how your demo reel will look, how the call's going to go, this and that. You can get caught up in the fine details of like wanting everything to go really, really perfectly and things to flow. But that's not how real life works. You got to adapt, you got to be flexible, and you got to adjust. And I think that's like a huge lesson I've had to learn, not just calling the games, but with everything else that this organization has done this year.
Yeah, that's amazing. Focusing now kind of on the relationships that you guys have built. Talk a little bit about these relationships you've built, whether it be with Coach Mary, with some of the players, with some of the fans even. Like, what have these relationships done for you guys, and kind of like what do you cherish most about these relationships?
I'd say the support from Coach Mary, especially, relentless support. It's not exactly like a mentorship relationship, but just like a supportive figure, like all the time, giving us compliments on the broadcast. When because like Devlin and I can definitely get pretty nitpicky in like, we didn't like how this went. We thought we called this well. We thought we called this terrible, whatever. But Mary has just always been so supportive of wanting us to call the games, in how we call it, in how I'm doing it, when Devlin's by himself, when I'm by myself, when Devlin's on play-by-play, I'm on color. And in all the setup too of me being like, hey Mary, can we buy this so we have this for the broadcast? She's also been like super supportive and like, yeah, I trust your judgment. I trust you, and that trust has been huge this year. It's made things really easy, and it's given me a lot of confidence in myself. I don't think, like a lot of college students at least have like a opportunity to really like build something the way I've had the opportunity to, and Mary's a huge part of that.
Yeah, the relationship that I've personally built with Coach Mary has been really, really great. And like Isaac said, she's super supportive, but it's not just that it's not really any sense of like, blind support in the way that, your mom loves you, that kind of way. It's that Mary, she tells us that she knows what we're doing. She, like Isaac said, she trusts in our judgment. She trusts that we know what's going to make a better product, and that this individual decision that we want to make is going to better the organization as a whole because of it. And we're putting something better on stream. We're getting a bigger switcher so that we can have picture-in-picture, and you guys can see Ashley Davidson, our awesome sideline reporter, while the tip-off is happening, and super cool things like that. That really all goes back to Coach Mary. But I think about my relationship with the players, and I love the players. I love the sense of community that we have as an organization as a whole, but really that there's not any separation between the executive board, the off-the-court people, and the guys that are out there making highlights. Like Tavion Johnson is one of my favorite people in the world. That guy is hilarious. He's one of the kindest souls you'll ever meet. And like Troy Mix Jr., he was awesome last year. Absolutely love that guy. And it was the kind of thing where, TBL, lots of roster shakeup. When it was kind of when rosters came out and it was decided that, he was going to be somewhere else next year, even on a rival like Great Falls, I was happy for him. Like, I want Troy to go out there and succeed, but I missed him a little bit. And so when Troy Mix Jr. came back, I was so excited to see him. It's the kind of thing where, in my head, to the players, I'm just the radio guy. Like, I'm just the play-by-play guy behind the scenes. But Troy remembered my name. Like, that kind of thing, shows me that there is a sense of community. And, he had a big smile on his face when I got to see him again. And that kind of thing, I feel like says a lot about the relationships that we've developed here. And even on the podcast, like you talk about Akita Clips as a sponsor. Akita's awesome. Super nice dude. And before this season, I had met him one time in here for the podcast that I was co-hosting with Isaac, where we had him on, had a great conversation with him. And now I see him at every Jags game. He's like the number one fan, arguably. And he says hi to me every time. And I feel like that sense of community with sponsorship partners and the fans, it's really just one big family.
Yeah, that's awesome. I remember when Troy was signed a couple weeks ago, and we had him on that same week on the podcast here, and he walked in the room, and your eyes just lit up, and you were so excited. You went up and gave him a big hug. So that was awesome.
How could you not be? It's Troy Mix Jr.
I want to talk. You touched on it a little bit, Devlin. I kind of want to talk about the fans, because at least from my perspective, I don't remember which game it was, but it was probably towards the middle of the season. Me being one of the interns, I was standing with one of the interns, and one of the little kids came by and asked for our autographs, like as if we were a part of the team. And it was just so cool to see. So I'm curious, like, if you guys have had like moments or interact. I know you guys obviously during the games you're up in the broadcast booth, but even that exhibition game that we played at the gate, you guys were on the call. I was standing near you guys on the sideline. I'm curious if you guys had similar interactions with the fans, or if there's any interactions like that really stand out to you guys.
Yeah, I mean, nobody's asked for my autograph, unfortunately.
Not yet, at least.
But we're there, and Isaac and I take it really seriously, and it's something that Coach Mary emphasized before the year, that she wanted us to dress professionally, and that's obviously something that we're excited to do. But often it's kind of just us and Dr. J as the guys there that are walking around in suits. And so, yeah, that, gives you some confidence, makes you feel important. But there's been a couple times where, I've been trying to get past somebody and they're like, oh, thank you. Like just the casual, thank you while you're walking by, when I'm not even doing anything for these people right now. I'm just trying to get to the bathroom right now because the broadcast is happening in 10 minutes. That kind of thing. Just the sense of family among all the fans, and that general kindness, to whether or not they actually know I'm there to work. Like, all these fans are such great people, and I think it that importance of, kids wanting an intern's autograph, that speaks to the significance of having something like this, like a team, a product like this to give to the people in a place like Albany, Oregon, and really just the whole Willamette Valley that doesn't, get to see professional sports. They get to see the, Oregon Ducks and the Oregon State Beavers, and that's really the highest level of competition that they get to see at any sport. And a smaller place like Albany that's kind of just outside of Corvallis has definitely thrived, and it's really beautiful to see how much it means to the people there to have their own team, their thing to be really excited about.
I think it's pretty cool just to think about the community of fans that have come back every time. Someone like Akita, and Devlin was talking about him earlier. He is undisputedly the number one fan in Jaguars history, to be 100% honest. He's there. He contributes to a lot of stuff within the organization too, but he's such a huge just support for the players, for getting people in and out, for, just telling people in the community about the team, spreading the word. Yeah, and seeing him every time, he always either gives me a smile or a handshake just in passing when I'm going to the bathroom or, walking around the court looking for someone to talk to. He's always like there to just be like, "What's up? Like, love what you're doing." Give me a supportive smile or just some encouraging words. And I think the really cool thing is like you get people like that really invested, and it really makes like such a nice and really supportive community.
Definitely. And Isaac, actually, as you were talking and as you were saying that, we actually have a special guest that is joining us right now.
Oh, whoa. What's up, Ashley?
She is the sideline reporter for the Jags and the head of content. It is no other than Ashley Davidson. Ashley, how are you doing?
Hi, guys. I'm doing quite well today. Thank you for having me on Beyond the Baseline. I'm so excited for my very first one. Golf clap.
For you, Ashley.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So first time in the studio for Ashley, and now we've got the entire broadcast on-air team with us. So that's pretty cool. And it actually leads into a perfect question that I have. I'm curious for all three of you. What is your favorite memory with the Jags so far?
That's a tough one.
And I'm thinking, to make it easier, if you want to do like one game and then like one like off the court experience, that'd be great.
You guys have one? Because I have mine dialed up.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Devlin.
So I'll do game was probably, I was calling earlier this year against the Grant County Red Tails, and Jaguars were down 20 points, I think, at halftime. Third quarter surge, I think they outscored the Red Tails 40-something to like 17 points in the third quarter and took the lead with just a couple minutes left after like a crazy sequence of big Tavion Johnson block and then a dunk on the other end. And then they capped off the third quarter with a Preston Whitfield like 2-second inbound play. He got one dribble off. He's fading out of bounds, and he banked in a three. And the crowd just went crazy. It kind of like completed the comeback. And that part of the game was just so cool. It was the first time I had really seen the Jags like have a huge run where they were like just the best. They were playing perfect basketball for like 8 minutes to end the third quarter. And that was just so awesome to see. And the guys loved it. Like the team was all fired up. It was super fun to see. But my favorite Jaguars memory, experience-wise, it's partially a game. But the first win, I was on the call. It was my second play-by-play call I've ever done. It was the second one for the Jaguars. And they won after free throws to put them ahead by one, and then a missed game-winner attempt by the Salem Capitals. And the environment was just ridiculous. I mean, it was almost like what we've seen for these home Jaguars games, just about every home game now. But that was the first time the fans had really gone crazy. And, the old owner, Marion, was out on the court, and he kneeled down crying. And I got to do a post-game interview that Emmett, our technical director, who was head of content at the time because the organization was so much smaller, Emmett and I kind of just, like, on the spot, I kind of just said on the broadcast, I was like, we're going to do a post-game interview. We'll be right back. We're going to step aside for a second. And then you can see on the broadcast, you see, like, I put my headset down. I'm scrambling to go find somebody to talk to. And Emmett's, like, up on the court. He's recording everybody. And so I got Tavion Johnson to come do a post-game interview. He had a great game. And while we were getting set up to do that, and right when he'd come on, we unmuted and went back live, and I was like, I'm right here with Tavion Johnson, one of the stars of the show today, and Troy Mix Jr. came over and took Tavion's headset and was pointing up at the camera. He was like, we did it! And he was like super excited, and it was just a super cool moment to see that raw emotion for the first Jags win ever, because it really meant something to those players that have played at all kinds of levels of basketball and with a bunch of different teams, but it clearly meant something to them, and that was really special for me.
That's awesome. And before Ashley and Isaac, you go, I do have a quick follow-up for you, Devlin. Do you remember what the call was, like, as that final buzzer sound?
I don't remember it verbatim, but I remember a big,
I wasn't like, do you believe in miracles? But it was like, they've done it. The Willamette Valley Jaguars snap a 31-game losing streak and win for the first time in program history. Like, I have it saved on my computer. I haven't listened to it in a while, but it was pretty cool. That's awesome.
What a monumental moment.
Yeah. You guys, favorite memories?
Oh my goodness. I have two that I really like. I would say one of my favorites was getting to actually do the national anthem this year. Yeah. But then I sang the national anthem and then had to run to the other side of the gym to do my sideline hit, because my sideline hit is right after the anthem and lineups. So I go from singing national anthem, like, okay, jitters are out. Let's go do a sideline hit. Gotta lock in again. But then my second favorite memory, I'd have to say, in game, was when we went into halftime. We were down, I think, 15 points going into the half in this game, and I believe we were playing the Red Tails, and I noticed, like, the littlest thing, Jarian Henry had switched his shoes, and he put one blue shoe on one foot and one black shoe on the other foot, and I was like, oh, you weren't wearing that going in the first half. And so after that, I mentioned it in my sideline hit, and I'm like, Jarian Henry is a new superstition. He has a new shoe game going on. One black shoe, one blue shoe. We actually came back from behind, winning the game. Was it because of his shoes? I don't know. But ever since then, Jarian started wearing a couple games later, he went back to just two black shoes when we lost the game or something like that. Then he went back to our last home game of the season, one black shoe, one blue shoe, and we won the game again that night. So that was kind of a fun little memory. And then, of course, just team-wise behind the scenes, my favorite memories with the team have to be going to Applebee's after the games.
I knew you were going to say that.
Every single game.
Which time, though? There are
oh, my gosh. Times. Every time. Because every single time we went into Applebee's, we had one waiter. His name was Creed. And he brought me a pup cup full of whipped cream because I asked for whipped cream on my drink that just should not have whipped cream on it. And then he brought me a separate cup of whipped cream every single time. And then just, being there and just having that team environment also while we were there was just memories I won't forget.
I did not think we would be saying Creed's name on the Jags podcast today.
Shout out King Creed.
We need to get him to a Jags game.
Oh my gosh, can we please? We've told him so much about our organization. I'm like, you might as well.
Right.
Yeah, we should have flown him out to North Dakota for playoffs at that point.
Right.
Shout out King Creed.
Isaac?
I got a couple. First thing I want to say, definitely in my top, I'd say 3 moments this year is Devlin's call of what he was talking about of the Grant County Red Tails, because I was there for that, and when Preston hit that buzzer beater to end the third quarter, I had goosebumps. Like everybody in the stadium was going crazy. The entire team was so fired up, and Devlin was fired up.
I remember seeing that from the sideline. Devlin
was losing his
so
mind. He couldn't believe it, but he said something like, I can't remember what you said, but whatever you said, going into break, entering the fourth quarter was epic. It was magical, and being on the call for that was pretty special, and witnessing that in person was pretty awesome. I'd say Devlin talked about the first win last year. That was Coach Mary's first game with the Jaguars in the organization. Mine was, one of my favorite memories actually was the home opener this year, because that was my first win that I'd ever called for the Jaguars. And one of the best moments was, and most memorable, because I replay it in my head, and I went home that night and replayed it multiple times, is Micah Johnson Jr.'s shot. It looked like a 3, but it ended up being a 2. But regardless, it gave them a 1-point lead in the fourth quarter. First lead of the season, turned into the first win of the year and the first win I've ever called. So that was definitely a pretty special moment. And then I have to say, for all the interviews I've done on Jags Beyond the Baseline, I think the best interview I've ever had was with Marion when he came on the show at the end of the year last year, at the end of the season. He told me his whole story and his whole journey as a basketball player that I had no idea about. And we went, and you can actually go back and listen to it if you want to, but I highly recommend listening to that podcast because it kind of gives you an idea of where the Jaguars, like where this idea was formed. Marion's not involved with the organization anymore, but he had this vision, right? That kind of started everything, you know? And so Mary has taken and ran with it. The community has really supported us and gotten behind it. But and that moment of kind of unveiling that and talking to Marianne about all that, which I had never heard before, was really special and one of my favorite memories, not just as in my time with the Jaguars, but just in my college experience overall.
Yeah.
I will say, I feel like there is one memory that I'm kind of surprised you did not say that I just thought of, and that was when TVL president David Magley went up to us and said that we were the best-looking broadcast crew in the TVL. I mean, interviewing him after probably was one of my favorite memories, but I will say Isaac's face lit up the second he said that. Like, really? Thank you. Like, that was fun. I'm shocked you didn't say that
I was like blushing.
You were.
That's awesome. Well, I'm glad to be joined by the best looking broadcast team in the TVL right now. Isaac, you kind of touched on it, and Devlin, obviously, you've been around this podcast for a little bit now. So far, like, what has the experience been with this podcast, and what has it really done for you?
Devlin, you want to start?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Isaac's really been at the helm of this podcast. It's absolutely his thing that I've been blessed to help with. And I've certainly had to miss a handful the last couple weeks, but it's been really fun. It's the kind of thing that I got into, and chore isn't the right word because that sounds bad, but it was the kind of thing that I was like, oh, this is another thing that I'm doing for the Jaguars. It wasn't something that I was like inherently super excited about, but it wasn't something that I was dreading at all. It kind of just seemed like another part of the job. But getting in here and getting to talk to the players a little bit more, having some, official like one-on-ones, two-on-ones with these players has been really cool to get to know some of the guys that especially I didn't know very well once the season started. Like we talked to, Micah Johnson Jr., and Jerry and Henry, and a couple of the other guys throughout the year who I had met in passing, and, I introduced ourselves and everything, but they knew me as the broadcast guy. I knew them as a shooting guard or, the center. And so getting them on here and getting to actually know them a little bit and build that kind of connection, I feel like did a lot for me personally in my relationship with the Jags and what I'm talking about. The whole team as a family. About how there's not really a separation between the executive board and everybody behind the scenes and the players. It's really just one like coherent operation. And I think that getting to talk to the players in such a formal way like this, but then also, having some informal banter back and forth before and after these recording sessions has done a lot for me. And, being a little bit more outgoing and getting to know people that I otherwise wouldn't be talking to very many, like late 20s professional basketball players in any other capacity. So it's been really cool.
I would say I think it's really interesting that someone like myself who wants to be a broadcaster and go into broadcasting, how you kind of become that's what the name, it's in the title as the voice of the team. You like speak for the team, right? And how the team is represented, how the team goes about their business. And I've always kind of like wanted that responsibility and thought that was a really cool responsibility for any team or organization or whatever. But I think it's cool that the podcast has like allowed the players to do that for themselves, and I think that's the whole like mission behind it. Is it's not like, I'm the liaison that's going from the team to the community. It's like, no, the players can talk to the fans almost directly, and you can find out about their stories. And Devlin mentioned some of the banter. When you said some of the best memories, I was actually thinking about when we had Micah. Oh no, sorry. It wasn't Micah. It was Brandon Suttles and Kevin Fletcher on at the same time. That was a really fun episode just because they're like super close and just going back and forth, and they're huge goofballs, and they're
That's the right way to say it.
To say the least.
They're really funny. And so I think it's just given the players an opportunity to tell the fans and the community really who they are, and that's the whole point of the podcast.
Yeah, no, I think that the podcast has done a great job of that because I don't know if you two have noticed, but something that I noticed about almost every guy that comes and sits in these chairs, all the players, is they're always like taking videos and pictures of like the microphone stand or
Right.
like where they're sitting, and so it does a lot for them, which is amazing, and like you said, the whole point. And as we're wrapping up here, I'm curious in all y'all's opinions, kind of what the next step for the Jags is. At the opening, we talked about the how this was the best year that the Jags have had, but there's still a lot to look forward to the future. So I'm curious, from your perspectives, what's next for the Jags?
I think that the Jaguars are obviously at a much better spot than they were at this point in the season last year. We found a home venue that we hope we'll be at next year, and we've got a more filled out coaching staff, and just the executive board. We brought some more people on, and it's taken some of the weight off of Coach Mary at least a little bit, because she's always been really shouldering the load for everybody. But I think the big thing is getting more people involved, whether or not that's people that are going to have specific titles like director of broadcasting, things like that, or if it's just fans, just people that are going to be at every game. We had a handful of those this year, and it was way more than we had last year. And so I think that the on the court product is gonna come as it will, and it's gotten better each of the last 3 years, and I certainly expect it to get even better next year. But as we figure out more and more of this off the court stuff and get more stability as an organization, I think that we're really just going to see a boom. Like the whole team is going to grow on the court, off the court, behind the scenes, for the fans, the promotions we're doing, like the promos that our fan engagement group has done this year is not something that you really could have even imagined last year. Right. I think Marion gave away a jersey last year. I think that was just about one of the only things that we actually did at a home game. And so now you do multiple promos every home game, and I think that that's the kind of way you've seen it grow this year, and I think that's a similar way to how it will grow next year.
Yeah, and I think we kind of just like set the baseline expectations, and now we can kind of grow from here and expand, like Devlin said, in our fan engagement, in marketing and social media. Exciting thing is that throughout the season we've had some people who were on the executive board kind of fall out and decide they couldn't do this, and they needed to leave. And there are some people, now that we've had a full season, who are coming on and joining. And like Devlin said, it's all about, having people on that just can support how they want to contribute without specific titles, just having more people at the ready when something needs to get done, something changes. And so it's really exciting. And we can't specifically say like who's coming on. There are a couple people coming on. I think Coach Mary would be happy to talk about that if we had her on the podcast. But yeah, just constantly growing. Seems like more people are getting involved, and obviously, as always, like still going to be very like invested and involved in the community throughout the off season. And excited to see what this team looks like after a full off season with Mary leading the way.
Definitely. I feel like my answer kind of adds on to both of yours, and in that this was definitely a foundation year. Mm-hmm. This year is a setup for what's to come next for the Jaguars, and I think we did a really good job of setting up the great things to come. And one thing that I think the organization should be really proud of is the community outreach. The Jaguars did so much in the community to help build the fan base and just get involved, be a part of the community, be a part of all the city of Albany, especially with changing locations before being the Emerald City Jaguars, now being in Albany. The organization this year, I feel like, has really built their spot in the community. And, even seeing kind of like what Devlin was saying, all of the promos in the games and players going to career days at elementary schools and, having our sponsor a player with, organizations and different, different places within the community, I think was huge for us. And even the high school kids who show up to the games, like we had high school kids eager to post on social media, to take photos, to work a broadcast camera. And I think we're setting up a next generation of Jaguars right now. And I can't even imagine what this organization will look like in years to come.
Yeah, you guys said it best. It was a great season for the Jags. Thank you for all that you guys have done and all you guys continue to do for the Jaguars. The season wouldn't have been as good as successful as it was without you guys. Thank you so much to Devlin Christiansen, Isaac Dubey, and Ashley Davidson for coming in and crashing towards the end. Stay tuned for more updates on the Willamette Valley Jaguars as we head into next season. I'm Jeremy Iskowitz. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's edition of Jaguars Beyond the Baseline. If you want to find out more about the Jaguars, you can go to their website at wvjags.com or follow them on their social channels at wvjags or search for Willamette Valley Jaguars online.